So, you've decided to take a class during the summer. That means you're either very dedicated to your education or you're a little bit of an idiot. I'm going to assume the former. Hey everybody, this is CIT 12. It is week 1, and my name's Brian Baker. I'll be your instructor for the next 6 weeks. 6 weeks. This is a summer course, very condensed. I take an 18-week course and I sort of cram it into 6 weeks, which means you're going to do 3 times the amount of work of anybody else in a normal week. That being said, I have streamlined a lot of things. We're not going to cover the little mini chapters in between chapters like I normally do. I've condensed a lot of the discussion, so there'll still just be 1 discussion per week. Sort of took the highlights and best of. Effectively, you can view the 18-week course as sort of a director's cut of what you're going to get here. But we're still going to cover all the major plot points, and I'm ruining this movie analogy. Now here's the good news. Although you're taking a summer course over 6 weeks, you're doing it online, which is great because that means that you don't have the same sort of classroom expectations that you would have for a normal summer class. You can do your work whenever you want. You don't have to come to a particular lab hour in the morning 4 days a week and like sit there and do your work. You can do it from wherever you want, whenever you want. And in fact, it is summer. I highly encourage you to go to the beach and spend your time doing homework. That doesn't really make sense. But regardless, you can if you wanted to. Let me also start out by saying that this video is going to be a lot longer than our normal weekly videos. Normally our weekly videos will be 5 minutes tops. I just need to tell you what we're doing this week, cover anything that might have happened the week prior that people had questions about or need to know about. It's my way of sort of touching base every single week. But those videos should be short because I know online video, people, you don't want to watch anything longer than 5 minutes. That being said, this week we're covering sort of the syllabus and what the class is going to be like. So just bear with me for this 1 week. Every other week, be sure to hit the weekly video. It'll be much, much shorter. All right, so let's get into this and talk about the class. If you've got a copy of the syllabus, that would be perfect. And by copy, I mean obviously that you just have another window open with the syllabus in it. There's no reason to print stuff out. But we're just going to kind of go over some of the highlights of the syllabus. You've got it there in front of you. You can read it. I trust that you are all perfectly literate, so you should be fine. I'm just going to cover some of the highlights for some of the stuff that people really care about and some stuff that may be a bit confusing for students. The most important thing is right up at the top, my contact information. You've got my email and a Google Voice number. You can call that number, you can text that number, all works the same. If you need something sort of an immediate response like, hey, this quiz is closed but should be open, could you open it? Calling or texting is a great way to handle that. I know most students like to text message. That's how I communicate with my friends, so text messaging is perfectly fine. That being said, email, text, it all gets sent to my smartphone. So really it doesn't matter what you choose. The only difference is, will I see it within seconds or will I see it within minutes? Both are going to be pretty fast response times. Then there's some course description and SLO stuff that I'm going to ignore because you're probably going to ignore it. It's a computer class. You're going to learn about computers. More importantly, the course text. A lot of people have already expressed some interest and have asked questions via email about the course text. You've got 2 options, all right? The first option is the bookstore option. If you go to the bookstore, you'll see for like $100-something a paper book with a card bundled with it. That card has an access code that will give you access to My IT Lab. There's 2 things you need, a textbook and My IT Lab. My IT Lab is sort of the system we're going to use for all of our labs, for all of our testing, for all of our everything. It's a lot more interactive. It tends to have better outcomes for students. Students tend to learn a lot more because you're actually being able to engage with the stuff like right there. Now that being said, My IT Lab has in it an e-copy of the textbook. I don't know why we call them e-books. We should just call them books at this point. But regardless, there's a digital copy of the textbook in My IT Lab. So you don't actually need that paper copy. And if you're okay not having a paper copy of the textbook, there's actually a much cheaper way to go. You can just purchase My IT Lab directly from Pearson. It's going to be about $75 or $79 depending on whether or not you get the spring price or the fall price. I'm not sure about summer. But regardless, it's cheaper than the the bookstore, so long as you don't want that paper copy of the textbook. I know statistically most students still prefer a paper copy of the textbook. I like paper books when I just read for fun. However, for classes, digital textbooks have got a lot of advantages, not the least of which is the ability to search by keyword. Finding the data you need in a very large set of data, that is a technical skill that will serve you well the rest of your life. If you are somebody who can generally get the answer you want in Google because you know what words to type into the Google search bar, you're going to love a digital copy of the textbook. Don't bother with the paper. You won't need it. You won't even use it. You'll end up using the digital copy every time. For all the quizzes, they're all open books. So you've got access to that. It's a much, much faster way to go and cheaper. So that's all you need for the class. If you purchase directly from Pearson, like I said, you'll get access to my IT lab as well as getting access to the digital copy of the textbook. That's everything you need for the class. If you really want a paper copy of the textbook, you're still going to have my IT lab. It's bundled together with it at the bookstore. But then go to the bookstore. I want to say it's still cheaper to buy the bundle at the bookstore because we did a bunch of negotiations with Pearson than it is to buy stuff separately online. But anyway, like I said, buy direct from Pearson. It's much easier. And there's a whole video telling you how to do it in the week 1 folder in Blackboard. Now, speaking of Blackboard, Blackboard is going to be our base camp for the entire class. All the information you're going to need, everything you need to do each week is going to be found here in Blackboard. We will end up using my IT lab. I'll have you log into that each week, but come to Blackboard first so that you know what you need to do in my IT lab. Now, the way that Blackboard is organized, on the left-hand side of the screen, you're going to see main navigation buttons. I'm going to assume that you're going to figure out what most of those buttons do on your own, and I'm just going to cover the one that is the most important. It's going to be a button that says Weekly Content. That is the button you should just be looking for every time. When you first log into our course in Blackboard, you'll see our weekly video, like this video. That's a good place to start. Watch the video. Like I said, normally they'll be like 5 minutes. I'll just tell you what's up and life will be good for you. But then immediately afterwards, hit the weekly content weekly content button, and then you'll see a list of everything you need to do. Here's the chapters you need to read, which you may or may not. Here are the lecture videos you need to watch. Here are the quizzes you need to take. I say quizzes because it's a summer course. You're probably gonna have more than one quiz each week. And then here are the labs you need to do, or here's the practical exam you need to do in my IT lab. So you can press the My IT Lab button, go link out and do stuff over there. Everything you need to do, the discussions for the week, it's all gonna be in that weekly folder. So when you click on weekly content, you're gonna see week folders. Like if it's week 3, you'll see a folder that says week 3. You click on that folder and you can just use all the content inside that folder as a to-do list. Just do all the things in order and you are gonna be perfect in the class. Now, since we're talking about those folders, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit and talk about my late work policy, just because when you click on weekly content, you're going to see 2 folders, except for week 1, because there is no past week. But normally you're going to see 2 folders. So let's say it's week 3. You're going to see the week 3 folder up at top, because that's the current week. And everything you need to do will be in there. You're also going to see the week 2 folder. And the reason for that is that I have a 1-week late policy, grace period, I should say, for all late work in the course. You can turn stuff in up to 1 week late, no penalty whatsoever. This is an online course. I'd like my work environments to be a little bit more flexible. And so the idea is that you should get everything for week 1 done in week 1. But let's say life just gets rough, right? Like that happens from time to time. Maybe you have a busier week this week, but a lighter week next week. So then you can offset some of that work and do some of it next week. Now we're going to keep going. So there's going to be a whole new load of work in week 2. So you don't want to fall behind, but you have the ability to sort of schedule out your work with a little bit more flexibility. Plus it's an online class. I mean, you can do your work whenever you want. If your prime time to do homework is 2 a.m. on a Thursday, then by all means do that. I earned a master's degree doing most of my work between midnight and 3 a.m. Just, you do what you need to do for your own schedule. But that being said, once work is past 1 week late, it disappears. You will not see the week 1 folder in week 3. And that's just, there needs to be some hard deadlines. There's a story in the syllabus talks about Google and, flexibility, but like we have very sophisticated means of determining your production. All of that to be said, there's flexibility, but with some hard deadlines. So you've got some flexibility, no penalty for turning stuff in up to 1 week late, but once it disappears, it's gone for good. So be sure to get stuff in before it disappears. That being said, in this 6-week session, try not to fall behind. There's going to be a lot of temptation to fall behind because it's summer and people are doing stuff and having fun, and you're going to want to go have fun, and that's perfectly fine. Like, go have fun and then just work at 3 a.m. or go have fun and then just work the next early afternoon before you go have fun again the next night. Whatever it is, right? You've got flexibility with the online class. Do the work as you need to, but you've got 1 week late, and then after that, it's gone forever. And I do need to mention that week 6 in this class is a short week, and B, there is no 1 week late period because we have to have grades in like Friday. So yeah, needless to say, you don't get a 1 week late period for week 6. I've tried to offset that. If you look ahead at the schedule, there's only a couple things there. They take some time, but there's only a couple things there, so hopefully you can kind of do that. And because like the class ends on a Thursday, instead of starting the week on Monday, I kind of overlap it a little bit with week 5 so that you'll have access over the weekend before week 6 to do work. Anyway, we'll get to that when we get to that. But I've tried to bump up the schedule a little bit so that you've got time to finish out week 6. All right, now every assignment that I'm going to have you do in this class is going to be put into a category, and those categories are weighted for your final grade as per the grading section of the syllabus. As per the types of assignments that I'm going to have you do, those things that you'll see in the weekly content folders, there's going to be a couple different types. The first ones are discussions. I know students tend to not like online discussions. Apologies. We tend to use them for online courses because they work really well for accreditation to show sort of interactivity between students. But regardless, you don't care about accreditation. We just have to care about it. So you end up having to do it. Needless to say, I've reduced the number of online discussions. And so you're sort of getting the highlights, the sort of best of the best. So instead of 18 discussions in this class, you're only going to have 6, 1 per week. And hopefully you find them useful. In each discussion, I'm going to have you go out, use a tool or see a video or check out some resource. And then you're going to come back, write a post, giving your response to whatever question I asked in the prompt. And then you're going to then respond, make a second post, respond to another student to sort of keep the conversation going along. But those are online discussions. They're pretty straightforward. And so that's the first type of assignment that you'll see. The second one are chapter quizzes. At the end of every chapter, you'll have a quiz. They're going to be 20 questions, multiple choice. Remember, you can use that search feature. They're open book. So use the search feature in the ebook. It'll be a lot faster and easier. But needless to say, chapter quizzes, one at the end of every chapter. You're going to have a lot of weeks that have 2 chapters in them because of the condensed nature of the course. Then, labs. Labs are done in my IT lab. They're going to cover one of the 3 major programs that we cover in this class, which will be Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, and Microsoft PowerPoint, all part of the Office suite. And then we also have a lab right at the beginning on Windows 10, in case you're unfamiliar with Windows. You can kind of get to know how to use Windows, or if you just haven't used Windows 10 yet, because it's only been out for like a year, then less than a year. Anyway, if you haven't, you can sort of see some of the new features of Windows 10. All right, so those are the labs. The labs, by the way, they're interactive, they're simulated in my IT lab, so it'll ask you to do something, you do it, and it'll correct you if you're wrong. It has a button in there to show you, like you can see a video of how to do it. There's some practice stuff where it'll sort of tell you just where to click if you prefer to do it that way. There's also a button to link you to the lab book. You're never going to click that link. Needless to say, at the end, there's a video in the week 1 folder. It shows you how to sign up for an account, how to purchase directly from Pearson if you want to do that. At the end of that video, I show you I just go into the first lab and do like the first couple questions. And so I show you how to use my IT lab. So definitely check that out. you'll need that part of the video. Hopefully you'll feel good about my IT lab. It's interactive. It tends to do really well. Students tend to like it. So anyway, those are the labs. Practical exams, those work a little differently. So at the end of every unit, every major unit, so Word, Excel, PowerPoint, there's going to be a big lab, effectively, that will sort of cover all the features you learned in those programs. In this class, because it's 6 weeks, it's going to come up like every other week. But the idea is that those practical exams, they're actually like a file, actually a set of files that you download from my IT lab to your computer at home. And then you actually use your version of Office to work on the practical exam. So you'll actually open up the file in Word. There'll actually be 2 files. One will have a set of instructions of things you need to do to modify the one document they gave you. And then there'll be some other files because like you'll need to add pictures. So they give you the pictures you need to add or stuff like that. But point being, you're going to modify that one document. Then you upload that one document and it's graded automatically. And then I have to check the grading because the computer doesn't grade anything, right? But regardless, it's a good starting point. There's usually just some bonus points that I'm going to award for stuff where I thought the computer was being a little too precise or a little too pedantic to actually matter in the real world. So anyway, needless to say, that's the idea of a practical exam. We'll talk about that more when you get to your first practical exam. Practical exams are not repeatable. Quizzes you can take as many times as you want. Labs you can do as many times as you want. Discussions, I guess you can't really do them as many times as you want, but it's at the very least, it's just your thoughts. I mean, how do you get your thoughts wrong? So that should be fairly easy. But practical exams and the final exam are take it once and you get graded for it. The last one is the final exam. That's the last week of the course. It's essentially just a really long quiz. It's 100 questions. It is standardized across the entire department. Every CIT 12 course takes the same final exam. And so, yeah, 100 questions, multiple choice. They're from the same pools of questions that you saw in the quizzes. So anyway, when we get there, we'll talk more about it, but it's effectively just a really long quiz, and it's also open note, open book. You're at home. How am I going to check that, right? So anyway, those are the types of assignments you'll have in this class. All right, so now the last part of this syllabus is the schedule. I'm not going to go over the schedule. You can see it for yourself, but I will use it as an excuse to segue into talking about what you need to do this week. So this is week 1. In week 1, we're going to cover 1 chapter because you kind of have an extra lab. So anyway, it'll all balance out in the end. But for week 1, we're going to be talking in general about technology and how it kind of changes stuff. But I hate it when people say, oh, technology changes everything, because everything changes everything. Anything you do changes the world in some way. What matters is how does it change stuff, and can you sort of predict what those changes are going to be so that you can make good decisions for your life. So we're going to cover chapter 1. Chapter 1 is all about using technology to change your world. And then there's a lecture video called This Changes Everything, where I say it ironically. Check out the lecture video, read chapter 1, and then you'll have a quiz on chapter 1. The discussion for this week is going to sort of be pulled from that. The idea that, technology changes, but can you sort of predict where things are going? I use an analogy at one point in sort of like when I actually do the lectures person to person about the Porsche factory. I saw this video on the Porsche factory. Honestly, any other car company would be the exact same. But the video just shows all these machines that like grab the cars and they spin them around and they do all the welds. And it's all these incredible robotic machines that essentially took a whole lot of welding jobs. There used to be an army of welders at the Porsche factory, and now there's a few that essentially check the work of the robots. A lot of welders lost their jobs. Now, welding is still a highly paid job. Like, it's still a really good profession, right? But it's just that we don't need as many welders as we used to. And so that's kind of a bad thing. Technology shifted and it made that skill less valuable in a way. And yet at the same time, Porsche and every car company in the world talks about their hand-stitched leather seats. Why? We don't have robots that can handle leather. We have robots that can weld, but not the other. One skill became less valuable arbitrarily because of technology. Another one became just as valuable or more valuable because we don't have technology to do that. And so knowing kind of how those skills are going to change matters. And you can find this information. Your discussion this week, I'm going to have you look at a couple resources to look at careers. The first of which will essentially take you to a site where you can sort of see, based on your major, the major you chose in college, what your outcomes are likely to be. That's important just because a lot of you, like you may be getting a degree in chemistry, but you're not going to become a chemist. A lot of people get degrees in something, but don't actually work in the thing they got their degree in. But at the same time, you learn a lot of other stuff, right? Like you took a lot of math to get that chemistry degree. That's going to have value somewhere else. And so essentially, the first source is going to look at your major. With it, how do people with chemistry degrees do versus people who have theater degrees or who have child development degrees or have whatever kind of degree? And that can kind of help you make some decisions here in college. Now, in terms of actual profession, like getting into a job, maybe you have that chemistry degree and you want to become a teacher. That's great, right? So how well do teachers do in the economy? That's the second source I'm going to have you look at. The state of California has lots of information about all sorts of professions. And you can see, I mean, you can even break it down to Fresno County, right? Like how much does an accountant make in Fresno County on average? What's the median salary for an accountant in Fresno County? What is the median income for a computer programmer in Fresno County? Whatever it is you want to do, you can take a look at the career you're wanting to pursue and see how much they earn. As well as that same report will give you for at least a lot of professions, not all of them. If you want to be like an animal tamer, you're on your own. I don't think I don't think they have a report for that. But for most of the sort of major professions, it'll actually have a forecast. Do we predict in the next 10 years that there will be more jobs available in this field, or will there be less jobs available in this field? If you want to be a secretary, for instance, that's a profession that has been really hard hit by technology. Most people have smartphones. Smartphones allow you to do a lot of things that formerly secretaries did. Or administrative assistants. We don't say the word secretary anymore. I don't know why. Some of the most powerful people in the world hold the office of secretary. But anyway, the idea is that is a profession that is maybe in decline. It's maybe something that you wouldn't want to study. Now that's sad in some ways, but there's other skills other jobs we didn't have 10 years ago. Like if you wanted to be a web developer in 1990, that job didn't exist. Graphic designer, that job existed, but it was weird people in LA. That wasn't a normal profession. We didn't need that here in Fresno. Now we need that here in Fresno. Those are jobs that we predict there will be more of in the future. And so as technology changes, it changes specific things in specific ways. And it's really helpful to kind of look at your own career goals and see what is it you want to do. And is this a career that's in decline, or is it a career that's sort of moving up? I just want you to have the tools necessary to make a good decision. So that's what this discussion is all about. Take a look at the discussion. You've got the prompts there, you've got the resources, and there's a video showing you how to use those two resources so you won't be lost. Needless to say, I've got videos showing you how to do everything, so you should be okay. But check out those two resources and then just tell us what you thought. For the major you've chosen and the career path you're headed on, is this encouraging news that you got from the research, or is it disappointing news? And I will say, because this is going to happen, some of you want to be social workers, and you're going to see how much social workers make on average per year. And you're going to be very discouraged, especially if you decide to look up chemists or something also. Don't be discouraged. If you want to be a social worker, we need good social workers in this world. I'm not trying to discourage anyone from becoming a teacher or a social worker or any of those things where we really need people. I want you to walk into your profession, whatever it is you've chosen, and not be surprised. All right, now we only had the one chapter this week, and that means we have an extra lab this week. So essentially your labs for this week in My IT Lab are going to be Windows 10 and all 3 of the Word labs. It's a 6-week class. It's just, everything is so compressed. I even got rid of a lab from the 18-week session. And it's still incredibly compressed. So Windows 10, be sure to kind of do that lab first, especially if you're not familiar with Windows. It'll help you sort of get your gauges. It'll help you figure out how to use Windows a little bit. And then the Word labs are not terribly difficult, but they do get into some details, stuff that you probably don't use in Windows very often. Windows 3, for instance, we'll talk about essentially like resource stuff. Like if you're doing a research paper, it can keep track of all your sources and do all your citations for you. It's a really nice program. It has a lot of great features, but needless to say, it's still a lot of labs for 1 week, and I acknowledge that. It's just the nature of a 6-week course. So you've got 4 labs: Windows 10, Word Lab 1, Word Lab 2, Word Lab 3. And then next week will be the practical exam on Word. So yeah, get into My IT Lab and do those labs. And that should be it. You've gotten all the information you need to hopefully understand this class and what you need to do, as well as what you need to do this week. Again, there's a lot of work piled into these weeks, but in 6 weeks, hopefully you'll be done with an entire semester's worth of a class. So yeah, if you have any questions, be sure to contact me, brian.baker@fresnocitycollege.edu, and I will see you online.